Good morning. We're here with Scott and Jo Repp, members of the Scott Repp family, recently inducted into the Ellensburg Rodeo Hall of Fame. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. For the record, would you state your full name, birth date, and birthplace for us?
My full name is Scott Frederick Repp. Birth date is 10/27/45, so that puts me at about 73 years old today.
And I'm Mary Jo Repp, and my birth date is September 12th, and I need to tell you the year too, 1948.
This is for the record.
And I was born in Prague, Oklahoma.
Prague, Oklahoma.
I guess I was born in Colfax, Washington, Eastern Washington.
Tell us a little bit about your ancestry, Scott.
I grew up in a little Eastern Washington community called Endicott, which is near Colfax, 20 miles away. My grandfather was a Russian immigrant, came from Germany to Russia to the Palouse country and was a wheat farmer. And my dad raised wheat and raised thoroughbred racehorses. That was his interest. And my mother's family was from Cashmere, Washington, and my mom and dad met in college and ended up farming in the Palouse country. So I lived there till I came to college in Ellensburg.
Was your grandfather's family, were they farmers in Germany? Or?
Yes, actually Russia. Originally they were from Germany, but they went to the Ukraine area in Russia.
Okay.
And actually they were, I guess the story was they were kind of Christians and they got, they packed up. And this was, my dad was one of like 7 kids, and some of his siblings were born in Russia, and he was born in the United States. It had been about 100 now. He was survived.
Not familiar with that Colfax country. Is there a group of Russian or immigrants?
Yes,
Is
the
that the reason they landed?
The communities, yeah.
Okay.
When I was a youngster in our Lutheran church we went to, we had German, what they call German-Russian services early in the morning, and then we had, that was at 9 o'clock, and then Sunday school was at 10, and then the regular church service was at 11, so it was quite, and my grandmother spoke, she didn't speak a lot of good English actually, she'd get excited.
How many languages do you speak?
Just one, and not very good at that.
Jo, tell us a little bit about your upbringing.
I was born in Oklahoma. We lived there till I was 5.
Okay.
My mother was originally from Alabama. I remember asking my parents several times about our ancestry, and I never got a clear answer. It was always vague. You were a little bit of this and a little bit of that. So unlike Scott, and I've never really had the testing done. It might be interesting to really see what the mix is.
Yeah. What brought them to did you move from Oklahoma to the Kittitas Valley?
Mm-hmm. To farm.
Okay.
And actually we landed in Quincy for a number of years before we moved to Ellensburg.
Okay. Now from Oklahoma to Quincy, and then...
and he farmed, and he had, excuse me, a farm in Royal City.
Okay. And
then in Quincy, kind of between Quincy and Ephrata. And so he farmed there, and then when I was a junior in high school, we moved to Ellensburg. So I actually graduated from Ellensburg High School.
But you spent most of your school years in the Columbia Basin. Okay.
Yeah, I started school there when I was 5, first grade.
What, just farming opportunities brought him from Quincy to Ellensburg?
Right.
Yeah. Maybe we'll start with this next question with you, Jo. Your early involvement or first memories of the Ellensburg Rodeo. Was it when you were...
Growing up, I guess you can't live in Ellensburg and not be aware of the rodeo because it's such a big part of the community. Sure. And so, and my dad was into horses and trained cutting horses. Okay. And so I remember riding a few times, when I was younger and going to the rodeo as a family. But
was it an event that you were familiar with when you lived in Quincy? In other words,
Not really.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry to say.
Well, tell us your folks' names.
Orrin and Louise Emerson.
Orrin and Louise Emerson. Okay. Scott, what was your first recall of the Ellensburg Rodeo? Or
gosh, I think in college, way back in the 60s is when I was here in college. they had they called it a Sweezy Weekend, CWSC, that was before the university. And it used to be like a little, you'd ride, cows and do crazy things, college kids, it was kind of a big thing, and I honestly didn't go to the rodeo when I was in college, I certainly knew about it, and then our family all went to college up here at some time or another, and anyway, gosh, I guess we were first married, we went to the rodeo, but that's been a long time ago.
When were you married?
1970.
1970.
Next year it'll be 50 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Close.
Yeah.
So, how did you and Scott meet, Joe?
At Central.
Okay.
Actually, it was a blind date. My roommate was going to an event, and so I knew that it was safe to go on a blind date, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, because we went to the same thing.
Got it. But at that time in your lives, rodeo wasn't a big part of it, it didn't sound like.
Not particularly. My father raised thoroughbred racehorses, and I remember going, to Pendleton one time years ago, and we had little Eastern Washington kind of small rodeos. I do remember as a boy, probably not even a teenager, went to Calgary. That's the only time I've ever been to Calgary. Because my dad liked that.
Yeah.
We went to a lot of racetracks.
Sure.
Thoroughbred tracks.
Dayton have a race meet for a
Dayton
long
had
time.
one,
and
Wadesburg,
Sure.
Walla Walla, and Spokane, and Playfair, and Bay Meadows, and the exhibition park in British Columbia.
But most of those didn't coincide with the local rodeo.
No, most of them were all, they were just thoroughbred racing stuff. So that was my exposure to, I guess, the horse industry, and stuff.
Got it. That's something that I've wondered for some time in preparation for this interview. How did you get to be a rodeo guy?
Wow. This is pretty crazy.
Sweezy Rodeo Weekend, we know
The
this.
first Ellensburg rodeo, and this is probably fairly unusual, the first Ellensburg rodeo that I ever attended, I was on the rodeo board. And it was because my good friend Brad Fitter. Brad kept encouraging me to get on the board, and I was in the community, we were doing the businesses we had here, and
Sure.
anyway, he just kept saying, you need to get on the board, you need to get, and so I finally did. Coincidentally, tell you what I knew about it, they had me run the kiddies parade the first year, so that's that's how much.
Well, we know how much you like kids. That makes sense.
And our daughters were little, and they were in it.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. It's, our kids enjoyed the rodeo, and our oldest daughter, Rusty, was a rodeo queen, I think in '95 or in that era, and then the younger daughter, Kaylee, participated in high school rodeos and did that,
Sure.
and really enjoyed the rope and stuff. So that was kind of it. But it was great for our family. We enjoyed the camaraderie of the other board members, and that was a special time for us and our families. So.
Well, your family's experience parallels mine a little bit. My dad was not had no background in rodeo, was a business person, encouraged to join the Ellensburg Rodeo Board, and as a result, I don't know if it was quite as life-changing for him as it was for your family, or our family as it was for your family, but it really is one of the themes we hear about the Ellensburg Rodeo is for whatever reason you become involved, and then it does change your life.
It does, yeah.
In some way,
In a very good way, positive way.
Yeah. Tell us about the evolution of your involvement with the Ellensburg Rodeo. We found a little bit out about how you started.
I got on the board, and I think I served close to 20 years, 19 or 20, but the first few years it was more of a learning process, what was going on. I had a wonderful bunch of fellows to work with, and it's a tremendous experience. I mean, you had the Ken McRae's and the low drivers, these guys were on the board,
Yeah.
Hardy Shore,
Sure.
Buck Miner.
Yeah.
These are guys that are probably all in your Hall of Fame now. Had a lot of wisdom, and you could learn a lot just by, and it was interesting, several of them, wouldn't say a lot in a board meeting, but when they did, you really needed to listen because there was a lot to learn from those guys. Early on, Jerry Anderson, who I know is in your Hall of Fame, he got me interested in roping, you know, and I'd ridden horses as a youth and, you know, but there was about a 20-year gap when we went to college and I never hardly got on a horse. You know, I grew up with horses, but then I didn't. But anyway, Jerry encouraged me to start roping and
This is after you joined the board?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, and did a little roping school, and I was discouraged. I was about ready to quit, you know, just because I wasn't having much success after 3 hours of his instructions, you know. And then I've always thought since then how thankful, and I've told Jerry this many times on a personal level, that he kept me going that afternoon. We had lunch, and he took me out that afternoon one-on-one and worked things, and you know, because it evolved into a lifetime passion for us and our family.
What time period are we talking about?
Gosh, this had to be around 90.
30 years ago?
Yeah,
or-
probably, because, you know, I've been on the board a few years. I got on in 85, so
Okay.
it was...
Late 80s, early
yeah,
90s.
somewhere in there.
Sharing with us your evolution of your experience with the Ellensburg Rodeo Board. Yeah.
Well, again, Jerry Anderson, his encouragement to keep at the roping activity has literally evolved into a lifetime passion for us and our family, you know, and we counted up last year when we were putting on these open ropings that we do during the Labor Day weekend, that we produced somewhere close to 400 ropings over the last 25 years, you know, so it's been quite a involved. But our kids enjoyed, you know, roping. Both daughters roped, and it was a good thing for us. Met a lot of friends, you know, and it's been good for us and I think the community as well.
Gosh, I'll say it's been a treat to watch that West Star Ranch evolve as well, and that's parallels your experience with the Ellensburg Rodeo, I know, but they seem like complemented each other.
Yeah.
Scott, in the 20 years you were on the board, explain to us some of the changes that you helped to spearhead and experienced.
Yeah. Probably, well, several, I guess, but the Ellensburg Rodeo tradition was when you brought something up to a board meeting, you brought it up, and if it got voted on and voted down, that was kind of it. You didn't go back. Well, we brought some friends who was an ex-professional football player to the Ellensburg Rodeo one year, and anyway, we walked in that north entrance, you know, and that's all you saw was the back of these, and I was real proud, as a lot of people in this community, I was proud of the Ellensburg Rodeo. And I looked at the back of those grandstands, and they were all kind of weather-beaten and painted, and I thought, this is the world-famous Ellensburg Rodeo. It's not much of an entrance.
Wait a minute, we get inside.
Yeah, cause, you know, and you know, people would go to the fair entrance, was, you know, had the flowers and the nice entry, but really the entrance to the Ellensburg Rodeo, where a lot of the participants went, was kind of an eyesore, you know. And so anyway, I brought up the idea to the board that, like, we need to have this little Western village or something out there, and they didn't like it, you know. They voted it down, and gosh, I was discouraged.
That
you
was
know.
their parking.
Yeah, that was their parking lot, you know, for the directors, and they didn't want to lose that. So, and I thought, you know, the directors are there all day. They don't need to park right there. They can walk a little bit. So the next month, I went home with Joe's help. I made this little paper doll, kind of a mock-up of a Western village, you know, on paper.
Or cardboard.
You know, I was an art minor at the college up there. I wasn't very good at it, but I could kind of, so I made all these little Western villages, and so I brought it and I tilted it up at the board meeting, you know, and it showed. Well then, God bless Ellensburg, we had a pretty interesting deal. That summer, we went around the valley, and I mean, we tore down, I know, 20 old barns, you know, and got the wood, the ranchers.
In anticipation to
Yeah,
use
they agreed that we could do the Western Village, you know, if I would spearhead the thing and get it built. So we put a rodeo office and a, you know, a VIP lounge and some little coffee shops and ice cream and a saloon, and did the whole thing. And had a meeting area where people could meet at the Ellensburg without going in and buying a ticket. So it got to be a place where people could come exchange tickets. It had a little place for little kids to ride rocking horses and, you know, that kind of stuff. But it worked, as, you know, and then it was, you know, and put a nice entry gate and everything, and it became a focal point, you know. So I guess, you know, that was, but what was fun is, I mean, we had people all over this valley donate their barns and the lumber, and you know, we went out and we'd have work parties in the evenings, the whole board and a lot of people in the top hands group, and we'd get all this old, you know, and then with help of, you know, we had some, Kelly Shademan was a contractor on the board. It was, you know, the building itself was a stick frame building, but then all that barnwood went on the outside. So, you know, the idea, it looked like it was a...
Yeah, this is authentic Kittitas Valley.
Exactly. This is what it ought to look like
Sure.
when you come to the Ellensburg Rodeo, you know, so I guess, and then I guess maybe the other thing, I started the Ellensburg Rodeo Gold Buckle Club. It was kind of my brainchild. And I had a friend in Seattle that had tickets for the Seattle Sonics on the floor. These people were paying like $30,000 for these tickets. I thought, gosh, we got a good product over here. Why don't we get a group of... So the first year, I believe we had 3 members that believed in this. They got an Ellensburg Rodeo buckle, an event buckle. The only way, either you won one or you joined the Gold Buckle Club, you know, and it had that.
Is that still the policy?
That's correct, yep,
Okay.
yeah, and it's, you know, it's gold, it's 13 karat gold, and they're 14, I guess, karat gold, and then they got a name badge for their wife. And the idea was we were trying to improve the attendance, the Ellensburg Rodeo, you know. So if you were a Gold Buckle member, you got VIP seating in the bucking sheets. You could buy extra tickets, that was part of the deal, and you got to go in. And so we had a barn raising there, we built the Gold Buckle building, you know, with the help of several of the Gold Buckle members, you know. And we went, the first year we had 3 members, the second year we had 17 members, the third year we had 38. By the year 5, we put a lid on it at 150 members. And these people all were paying $1,000 a year to the Ellensburg Rodeo.
And you had a waiting list.
And we had a waiting list for that. And one of the things that, the first year, the buckles are the beautiful buckles made by Jim Custer, who owned Championship Belt Buckle, Cody Custer's dad, who was a world champion bull rider. These buckles cost us $600 or $700, and we had these little sterling name badges that were another $150. The first year, there wasn't much of a cash flow by the time we fed dinner to people and things like that. But the idea was the next year and the years after that, we didn't have that cost. And so it was a very nice fundraiser for the rodeo, you know, plus these people would get extra tickets for their family members and friends and stuff like that, and that was kind of the purpose.
Was it a case, I'm trying to remember the timeline, where you build it and they will come? In other words, did you start the with your first 3 members before you built the building?
Yes,
had to have.
yes, it had to. We used to house them upstairs in the Buckaroo section. And that
Okay,
was very
okay.
small, you know, like the
Yeah,
little
yeah,
media
yeah,
rooms
yeah.
up there. They're probably
And the food was up there.
food was
and-
up there.
Okay.
And you're right. We had 10, well, had 13 members. You know, that's 26 people,
Yeah.
and they'd have their seats, and we used to have them go sit in the seats, come up, have something to eat, go back,
Oh,
sit, and
okay.
go back and forth. And then it grew to the point where we thought we could pull up. And again, it kind of felt like we needed a stadium, and that east end of the Ellensburg Rodeo grounds was kind of open, you know, and this kind of put us all together, you know, in a circle there, you know, and it made it had a stadium feel, and then, you know, it just kind of allowed us to have that group grow, you know.
And there, I suppose, was some certainly some discussion, and I can't imagine it have been unanimous in terms of the board's support for the idea. I understand that the changing of the environment of the arena.
Yep.
That was,
It shortened
as
it
I
a little.
remember, it was.
Exactly, it did shorten the arena, and they, you know, there was a little bit of thought there, you know,
Okay.
and we still had the track, and you know,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
at that time, you know, we had the track races for a while, you know, and then I guess the next thing I kind of evolved into was we were down and our daughters were doing the rodeo stuff, and I was standing out in the arena one night on an evening in the summertime, and I thought, gosh, why don't we? The rodeo, the calf roping and the team roping came out from under the grandstands, as you remember, and we had a difficult time with TV and things because you couldn't see the contestants. You know, they were back in a hole. You know, and in that time, a few of those years, we broadcast. Winston was a sponsor, and it was on nationwide TV. You know, but you couldn't see the contestants. You know, the camera guys would have to go around the corner and watch them come out. And so I thought, gosh, why don't we move that stuff out and then put a rim of seats over to the north, which would be just to the left of the team roping or the calf roping and all the way over to and put in new bucking chutes. So it was kind of a fun thing. We had a party for the Gold Buckle Club one night, and we sold all the bucking chutes.
They auctioned them
We
off.
auctioned them off.
And you can see them throughout the valley when you
Yeah.
go to different
Still do.
places.
And the fun thing I love about that is we didn't really own them. The county owned them.
But we didn't realize that till later.
We didn't realize it till later until my good friend again, Brad Fitter, says, you know, we don't own those. I don't know how we can sell, but we sold them for a lot of money.
But you replaced them.
Yeah, we replaced with brand new ones, you know, and they came out.
And they're a little longer.
And they were longer and bigger. But I mean, some of these brought like $2,000 a shoot, these gates, because a lot of history, this valley loved, everybody wanted one for their ranch, and they put them on their gates and their ranch, you know, and stuff like that. And we coincidentally ended up with we stayed out of the auction, but the last one they got tired of bidding, so we did buy number 10, you know, just because nobody was raising their hand anymore, you know, so we have one at our place. But anyway, and then we created 246 new seats along from the bucking chutes to the calf roping outlet area.
So not only did you improve the visual experience
Yep.
for both TV and fan, you added seats to
And
the
And they have a
facility.
back on
And they
them.
had a back, and they were
Yeah.
down on the floor.
Yeah.
And remember, it used to be up
Yeah.
8 feet, two
Yeah.
sheets of plywood up
Yeah.
there, and there was a
Yeah.
deck up there. And it's still there.
Sure.
We just
Yeah.
built it in front, and board members, and we pre-sold, you know, it was one of those things, how do you fund things, you know? So we
Yeah.
pre-sold them the tickets were going for like $30 in those days for those really premium seats. But we did a deal where if you bought them for 10 years and paid $20 up front, you got your tickets for that many years. And they sold like popcorn at the theater. I mean, everybody bought them. And those tickets are on the permanent tickets. They're all sold every year. And it actually increased the ticket revenue for the Ellensburg Rodeo by a considerable amount,
Sure.
especially today, because that 10 years has passed and those are the premium seats, you know, and they're all paid for, and it was just instantly kind of a cash cow for the rodeo.
Were you a part of the grandstands to the south of the Gold Buckle Room as well?
I was on the board
Yeah.
when we,
Yeah.
did that, and we hired a engineering firm out of Wenatchee to, they said they were structurally unsound, they needed some things done, and then we got that, so that, during the tenure that I was on the board, we redid that set of grandstands, and in the same time, we built the new Buckaroo. When I first was on the board, it was the old Buckaroo with the little wooden thing. That was the very first couple of years, and then we built the bucking, or the Buckaroo section there, which was, those were kind of they were shaded and, kind of over the bucking chutes, and that's where these Gold Buckle members could buy extra tickets, and so that kind of helped spur that group's, interest, I should say, in that.
Well, one of the fun things of doing these interviews is learning about the Ellensburg Rodeo and people's different contributions. I've often thought of you, or think of you as a premier marketer and person that helped bring folks to the Ellensburg Rodeo, and I didn't understand, I guess, the connection with the facilities and the modernization, really, of the...
See, and if you go way, way back, they had never sold a t-shirt.
Yeah,
And the first year, we had a friend
gosh.
design them,
Yeah.
with all the old Indian stuff. Mike
Yeah.
Durant designed all those, and we started selling t-shirts off of a table. And then Scott built those little booths that are still there to actually put the merchandise in. And Kaylee, our younger daughter, was between 4th and 5th grade, maybe 3rd and 4th grade, and she had broken her arm at a friend's house and had a cast on, and she had visors on her arm, this little redhead,
Oh, boy, yeah.
and sold out.
Like that.
And we didn't have any visors for the rest of the weekend. And then the beer garden, you were in charge of that one year,
Yeah.
expanded the beer garden.
Yeah, we used to, the t-shirts, we used to be kind of into old classic cars, and that was our fetish for a while. And we go to these swap meets and they have all these hats and t-shirts. I said, why doesn't
Where do
it?
you go?
I said, Ellensburg Rodeo doesn't have any, well, and God bless it, I mean, I had the low drivers of the world and the Buckminders and the Kim McRae, well, they weren't into
You
t-shirts.
wear a t-shirt under
Yeah, you don't wear a t-shirt or hat, you don't need those in a rodeo, And so and Joe was the vocational director at the school, and so we literally would go in the morning with our kids and her girlfriends, and we'd fold up t-shirts, and we'd put them on card tables in front of
The computer labs
Oh,
for.
yeah,
or-
at the vomitories at the rodeo, and we sold out, and of course, so then the first year, of course, it's a money thing, then the next year they let, okay, so can I build a couple little booths? So, yeah, we did, we
spoke for itself.
Yeah, we did that. And then, the rodeo board, the tradition was we kind of moved around with jobs because you didn't get a burnout, so one year you were maybe concessions, and one year I was in charge of concessions. Well, we used to have just that little block building back there, and that was the behind the chutes. That's all it was.
Yeah.
And I said, man, this is ridiculous. You can't get anybody in here. There's no place to sit. So the local Budweiser dealer, Ralph Smith, I talked him into it. I said, Ralph, would you build us a little patio thing out here and plywood it in and pay for it because we're using the product. Yeah, and so he did. And there's a fun Ellensburg rodeo story. So it was crazy. I mean, we went, and I don't remember the dollar amount, but it went from selling this much to selling this much in one year. It was crazy. And, we're hiring college kids, and you're always kind of worried about, putting their hand in the till.
Sure.
And we're working. The only security I had there was a cooler room that had a lock on it. And so the kids, we were selling cups of beer, and we figured out a cup of beer was costing us 6 cents, and we were selling it for $2,
Yeah.
And so I tell these college kids, I said, just stand in line and fill the beer and then sell it to the customers out here. And the money, the temptation was, so I would take the money and take it and put it in the cooler room, just so it'd be, there wasn't so much in the till.
Fortunate.
Yeah, it just so the temptation was less,
yeah.
And I had, we'd work all day, and I'd take my cowboy boots off and wear tennis shoes because you're tired of standing all day, And to a place to put the money, I was stuffing the money in my cowboy boots and stuff like that. Well, that.
You probably shouldn't tell the rest of that
No,
story.
that's why. Actually, you were involved in that. So we went on a Monday night. There was a little ruckus outside of the bar, and a couple of guys that you helped solve the ruckus. They stopped the deal,
Okay.
and I was carrying the money to make the deposit the next day. Well, I had a Ford truck that had a console in the front, and I stuffed some of this money because of this ruckus we were having.
Sure.
I didn't want somebody to get the money. So I'm selling real estate, right? 2 months later, I'm out showing real estate, and there's a couple wanting to sit in the front seat. And I pick up this little center arm, and here was this pile of money that had been there since the beer hall. And so I told Alan Faltus was our treasurer,
Oh,
and Alan did a great job of the deal. So 2 months later, I go to Alan, I said, Alan, there's more money in the beer hall. And he said, we're just gonna count it in next year's budget.
Good for you.
Yeah, that's why I said I don't know if you should tell the rest of that story.
Yeah,
Well, it
it's a-
reduced the temptation with the college kids, and
Yeah.
all funds were accounted for.
Yeah, they were
so
all-
that's
yeah.
a
Right.
happy ending.
Right.
Well, the next question, ironically, is memories or things that you enjoyed about the Ellensburg Rodeo. You shared some with you, or with us. What other?
What about yours? You must have some.
Well, I guess it's always a fun weekend, and we've always had a lot of company. And so just having lots of friends and family come over for the rodeo, and I remember one weekend we had some friends come, and we went out to dinner the first night they were there, and they ordered steaks or something, and then we took them to all these different events throughout the weekend.
Sure.
And every single night you get beef. And they said if we had known it was a beef weekend, we wouldn't have ordered beef the first
We
night.
had fish the
Yeah,
first night,
but
sure.
I mean, with the kids, I always remember, don't come home hungry rodeo weekend, because I don't cook rodeo weekend. You're out and about,
Yeah,
and so there's just food everywhere.
Sure.
And so now we have kind of quit doing quite as much company rodeo weekend because of our open roping.
Sure.
And so we've got so many people there then that we kind of entertain them at other times of the year. But they still a lot of them still come to the rodeo.
Gosh, yeah, I mean, that's another theme of the Ellensburg Rodeo is just, it's tradition for folks to come and stay with the host family. You know, or
Yes, yes.
check in at least, but.
And the parade, and where you sit at the parade, and what you do before the parade, and there's a lot of traditions a lot of families have.
We've commented a time or two about the best of the best roping. Tell us when it began, Scott, and how it is a part of the Ellensburg Rodeo experience.
Okay,
I think it was 03.
03, so we're 18 years ago, I think, something roughly around there. We recognized that, at that time, we'd met a few of the professional cowboys and become friends, but certainly not like today. But we recognized the plight of these cowboys, that by the time they get to the Northwest in the fall, a lot of them are in a real financial bind. I mean, they truly were. They were just upside down financially. They were trying to make the finals, but they had some real, discouraging times. And so we decided that I was still on the board, we produced the best of the best, we call it open roping, and didn't know for sure it would work, but the idea was that we would do it the day before slack, because all the participants participate on that Thursday of slack, and Monday and Tuesday they're in Walla Walla or down in Idaho at rodeos, but they always get back to Ellensburg on Wednesday because they wanted, Ellensburg being one of the major stops, they wanted to participate. So the first year we decided to do it on our own. We weren't really sure if it would work. You'd hope, but so I don't know, we advertised.
They didn't pre-enter at that time.
Yeah, we didn't pre-enter. We just kind of got the word out, and Speedy Williams, who that name is pretty recognizable in the team rope, and he was an 8-time in a row world champion. He was the first one that came, and I told Joe, and we were novice at this. I said, well, if nobody else comes, we got the 8-time win, and that year he was also the world champion. I said, we got the best in the world. I said,
was it called the best of the best at that time?
I think so.
I think it was.
Yeah, and he pulled
We
up.
were being optimistic at that time.
Yeah, and he pulled up in the driveway, and he's become a pretty darn good friend.
That time he had a big thing along the side of his
mural, and it showed him at the NFR 0.1 or something. He was the rope was coming out of his hand, and so
that was on the side of his trailer.
Yeah. And Joe remembers better. The first year, I believe, was 3 or 4 people stayed.
Three.
With us. 3 people stayed, camped out there. And my gosh, now there's hundreds. And so it's quite an evolution, over the years. We have been fortunate enough to, make a lot of really, really good friends. These cowboys and their wives and their children. We've literally had families in the last 18 years that didn't have children, that now have children that are teenagers, or their children have got, T. Woolman, a good example, world champion. His kids are out of college. Corey Kuntz's kids are out of college. We've known them since they were small children, and anyway, the best part of us doing that rope, and besides, we've never, and we're kind of proud of this, we've never taken a dime from the Cowboys. We've never taken 10 cents, for putting that roping on, and we've paid everything out. And that's in our hearts to do that, and we're not, it's never going to happen in our tenure at the deal out there. So it just, but that being said, it's the relationships we have with these, we've gone to these young people's weddings, and we're invited to their social things and stuff, but they're friends and they come, and long after we're done doing the roping, we've still got all those friends.
Sure.
And it's been a great
Well, on
thing.
that, we can spend the money, but
Yeah.
Well, and a lot of them stay with us a month. They show up mid-August, and
Yeah,
and then they leave to go to Pendleton mid-September.
Yeah.
And so you really get to know them pretty well and get attached.
They love Ellensburg. Strand Smith, who's a world champion calf roper, told us one time they felt it was the safest venue that they go travel all year. Because they come to Ellensburg, the fair is safe, you're out in the community, they can let their kids walk the street. They don't feel that way on every place they go. They just
I think rural America might be like
Right.
that.
Yeah,
but
they
not
and
necessarily.
they'll go to town and leave their kids out home and play and feel comfortable. Where they don't have just the way their world is today. You have to be, but they love, and a lot of them. And we've seen it on their websites and stuff. They'll say, "What's their favorite rodeo?" And they'll say Ellensburg. you know, and that speaks well of the community of Ellensburg. It's not just us. I
Well,
mean, they open their arms to these kids, and they like being here. You know, it's a great stop for them. You know?
They really do. When I have the opportunity to interview contestants that have been inducted, that is an ongoing
Yeah,
theme again.
that they like.
The community in general and the West Star Ranch in particular.
Yeah, it's-
You mentioned earlier in our conversation, you've hosted 18 best of the best ropings, but you also produce ropings throughout the year for amateur ropers, and I
Jackpots.
want to thank you and let you know that that's very much appreciated. I mean,
Oh,
it's
thanks,
not
Nick.
something that you do for, you know, to rub elbows with the big shots. That's clear. It's something that's you're passionate about, and it's neat. Yeah.
Kind of a family.
yeah. Kids-
Well, it is. Yeah, without question. Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Good stuff. Closing comments. What would you like to share with viewers of this interview about the Ellensburg Rodeo and your experience with it?
It's a great experience, you know, the friendships that we made, and particularly, you know, the board of directors, our board when I started, there was 12, you know, and these guys are all, you know, we served on pretty much the same board, you know, for a number of years and became very good friends. You know, the relationship and the friendships we've had with the contestants has been, you know, second to none, you know. I'd encourage anybody, if they have the opportunity to get involved at some level, you know, the Top Hands, the Posse, the Ellensburg Rodeo Board, or just be, you know, we always told the story that, you know, the superintendent of schools was seating people in the grandstands, you know,
Yeah.
years past.
Football team cleans
Football
up the
teams,
bleachers.
it was such a wonderful, it's rural America at its best. You know, the whole community, I always bragged on, we had one paid employee at the rodeo, you know, year round. Everybody else is a volunteer, you know, and I said, we got all these, and that speaks well of this community, and that's the reason that, you know, and you're proud, you know, we spend a good share of our life now in Arizona in the winter, you know, and, you know, the first thing people say, when you say you're from Ellensburg, oh, you got a good rodeo, you know, and coincidentally this year, we have a fellow we met as an attorney in Pittsburgh down there, and he's coming all the way out to go to the Ellensburg Rodeo because it's on his bucket list.
Yeah.
And he was a stranger to us. We did not know him from anybody, but he came up and introduced himself and said, you know, Ellensburg Rodeo has been on my bucket list. He said, and I want to go. And I said, well, good for you, you know. So, but yeah, it's not joke speak. I mean, it's for our family, and you know, it's been a good part of our life, and we certainly have enjoyed it.
Well, and I guess I have to say too, the Hall of Fame board, I mean, for all of the volunteers that participate in that, to record memories and the history of the rodeo. I mean, I know that there's a lot of you that spend a lot of time and dedication to that. And I think at some point, people need to realize how much you do. And I think sometimes the behind the scenes stuff is never recognized.
Yeah,
And you
top
should be
to bottom,
and you should be
You
recognized.
can say that about the Ellensburg Rodeo.
Yeah.
You know. And it's not something that people do for recognition.
Yeah, no.
Right.
That's what makes it so wholesome, I think.
Right.
Any stories you'd like to share before we shut her down?
No, I think that's good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
This is